Hi there, Lloyd Machedo. Speaking to you from LloydMachedo.com. Who's Lloyd Machedo and Think Personal Branding? The date is August 6th, 2018. Time right now is 7:13 in the night. Okay. Wanted to give you my thoughts about Apple crossing Apple, the $1 trillion. Okay. Let me give you my views about Apple being worth $1 trillion. I'm just checking on YouTube, and 3 days ago, all the news channels, almost every news channel on the planet, reported that Apple crossed the 1 trillion mark. Now, why do I feel that doesn't mean anything? That's pointless, meaningless. I'll tell you why. Okay. First, just to give you a short summary for you to understand about Apple. See, Apple was registered in the stock market on 12th December 1980. Okay, that was when it was put on the market share. It had 4.6 million shares, $22 a share, which is one 1/10,000th of a share value that it is today. It was after that, in 1985, Steve Jobs was kicked out of Apple, but still John Sculley made Apple grow. And 10 years later, the company's figures peaked to $11 billion. However, because it was not being managed properly, too many products, too much problems, on Feb 9th, 1997, that is 2 years later, Steve Jobs came back. Okay, Steve Jobs released the iMac, iPod, and the iBook. That is, if you remember, October 23rd, 2001, when the iPod was launched. Okay, the big announcement. Then, January 9th, 2007, that is when the iPhone actually came out, and January 27th, 2010, when the iPad came out. All this, what it did is it contributed to the growth of Apple, and Steve Jobs was the force behind coming out with these new products. There was no iPod, there was no iTunes, there was no iPhone, there was no iPad. He brought all these products out. He used his creativity, his geniusness. Okay. However, after he died, people predicted that Apple would crash. It didn't. The share prices surprisingly kept going up. But at some point, people realized there was no more innovation, there was nothing happening, so share prices came down. And that is where, on September 2014, they launched the oversized phone, that was the 6 and 6 Plus, which became like a runaway success, especially in China. People loved that large phone. So that became very popular. And that is where Apple introduced in 2017 the most expensive iPhone ever, $1,000. And, with all these new jazz changes. But that is where things started to backfire. Sales started to go down. And then in January 30th, 2018, Apple announced that it would cut iPhone 10 production. May 1st, 2018, Wall Street Journal reported that because of the problems that it was facing with phones, they would have a lot of buybacks, 100 billion worth of buybacks. July 31st, they rectified the problem, iPhone sales were up. Now, why, after I give you all these results, just a summary, why is it that Apple has reached this new level of $1 trillion mark? It is simply because there is speculation that in September, that is after 1 month, they are going to come out with new products. So it's nothing but speculation. Now keep this in mind. There are a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. First is, Apple has not always been successful. Like, if you remember Apple Pippin, which was again 1996, the 20th anniversary Macintosh, which was an utter failure, 1997, the Macintosh Portable, 1989 failure, the iMac Hockey Puck Mouse, I don't know if you remember that, 1998 was a failure, Macintosh TV, 1993, again failure, Apple Mutant, 1993, again a failure, the Quick Take 100 camera, another failure, and lately, it was the iPod Shuffle, which nobody could understand what was the point of that, and the 12-inch MacBook, which again was a failure. And now, currently, you have, the touch bar, and which hardly anyone uses. and it's MacBooks which they have come out. They are overpriced, and at the same time, the keys, the butterfly keyboards, have massive problems. So Apple is not immune to failure. Apple can fail. Okay. After the 6 Plus, me being a hardcore Apple user, I've not purchased an iPhone because I'm not convinced that Apple is listening to its customers. In fact, the thing that I hated the most was losing the jack where you could put the earphones and listen to it. I find it so silly having those two things at the side. Fine, it can be a great innovation, but give people the option of having the jack. And I would say the even more bigger problem that Apple has, which it has still not addressed. Okay, mind you, it's still not it. The cable problems, the cables break very easily, or they fray, or, you know, they just break off. And Apple cables are not cheap. The second thing is the iTunes. If you register for Apple Music, the subscription cancellation, there are a lot of hassles there. You especially have the keyboard, butterfly keyboard. I've checked with some of the people who have the new MacBook Pro. They're saying even a small little dust goes there, the keys get jammed, and they don't reimburse you or they don't repair it. It's the whole thing has to be changed, and people have to pay money. Then you have the affiliate fees for bloggers, which has been killed off. And the biggest one is the dongle hell. You need to have extra fittings just to fit in all the dongles. Why is Apple trying to go so far ahead where there are no replacements? In fact, even there are so many, if you see, I have so many educational materials which are still on MP3 CDs, which are still on DVDs. I can't use them. I just cannot use them. I need to have an external device, which really pisses me off. The problem is Apple says either my way or the highway, which they have managed to succeed for so long, but they cannot survive this way forever. See, Steve Jobs came out with all these new products, new inventions, new discoveries for user experience. Tim Cook just capitalized on this, and, you know, he undid everything Steve Jobs did. Steve Jobs just wanted only 4 products or 5 products. Tim Cook made so many variations of all these products. When, you know, John Sculley kicked out Steve Jobs, the company was doing well in sales. After that, when it tried to innovate, it was a disaster. Steve Jobs came back and got rid of all the extra products, all the extra variations, so many components. Tim Cook has repeated the same history that John Sculley once created for Apple. Now you have the same thing that is happening. History is repeating itself. But the only problem is there's no more Steve Jobs. Tell me of one new innovation that Apple has come out with. After the iPhone, the iPad, the iTunes, the iPod, what has it come out with? Nothing. In fact, the iPad, the way it charges the pen, it's so ridiculous, right in the center, and it looks like you can stab someone with that big little, iPad. And every accessory of an Apple product is super, super expensive, from the cables to everything else. In fact, the iPods, I mean, a dog can swallow this and you'd lose it. Now, one last thing which I want you to keep in mind is Apple's value. Okay, it was not the only company. PetroChina, which was registered in Shanghai Stock Exchange in 2007, it was also valued at $1 trillion in 2007, mind you. But since has lost $800 billion of its value. Saudi Aramco is actually, experts say, is valued at $2 trillion. But because it's a private company, nobody knows the worth. Now, Apple currently is worth as much as these countries like Germany, India, South Korea, Russia, Spain, US, Canada, Japan, Italy, France, Mexico, because they have a GDP of $1 trillion. So Apple is worth that much. But this value is based on what? Apple has not come out with anything new. It is just nothing but pure speculation. They are just speculating and believing that Apple is going to come out with something amazing, going to come out with a new invention, going to come out with a new discovery, a new technology. Apple Watch. How many people are using the Apple Watch? Hardly anyone. Nobody talks about it. So this is danger. This is dangerous. And it's a trend where people are just trying to capitalize on the future, a promising, hopeful future. It's like you starting a business hoping that you're going to make $1 million. Okay. I personally feel this is nothing but just hype, and the hype is going to die down. And once you reach the top, the only way is down. Okay. Apple has reached its peak. From 1 trillion, it's not going to go to 2 trillion or 3 trillion. It's not possible, because unless you come up with something so revolutionary, so amazing, which will change the entire face of the earth, you cannot. You have right now Amazon at 877 billion and Alphabet at 854 billion. They are closely there. Apple has reached the 1 trillion mark. People are making big noise about it. My prediction is from there, in September, if it doesn't impress investors and shareholders, the share prices are going to just come down. So if you have Apple shares, better sell it off right now when it's at its peak, because after this, the only way for Apple to move is downward. And that is my prediction about Apple, what is going to happen next. So let me know what you think. You like the video, get a thumbs up. Don't like it, thumbs down. But please do put your comments, because I always read your comments. And just tell me, do you think my analysis is right? Is it wrong? Love to hear from you. This is Lloyd from Machedo.com. Who is Lloyd Machedo and Think Personal Branding? Signing off for now. Take care.